Hey nerds, what's up? Today's video is going to be a book diary, another one, but this one is going to be for Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. I'm really excited about this, and let me show you some of my annotations. So far, I'm on page 105, so let's just show you some of the annotations I have. So my first annotation is orange for world building, and it is on page 4. And we get the occasional solo of the whip added to the symphony of brutality Ardalan had created for its greatest criminals, poorest citizens, and latest conquests. And then they're talking about the slaves. Most were from Elwë, one of the last countries still fighting Ardalan's rule. Then on page 7, I have a purple for favorite stuff. I don't quite comprehend why you'd force someone to bow when the purpose of the gesture is to display allegiance and respect. I really liked that. Dorian says that. So then on page 8, I wrote so many exclamation points. You can really tell in this book that Sarah J. Maas's writing was not as good as it is in the later series. There's so many exclamation points. It's ridiculous. Then on page 14, I have the prince's eyes lingered a bit too long on her body. Celaena could have raked her nails down his face for staring at her like that. I just love Celaena's brutality. Then on page 22, this was a sad. She faltered as she beheld the mounds of bone-colored rock at the far end of the compound, and the small figures going in and out of the many mouth-like holes cut into the mountains. Celaena averted her eyes from the prisoners because she feels bad. None of these slaves would ever leave here, even when they died. Each week, they dug new mass graves behind the refining sheds, and each week, those graves filled up. And then more world building, the civilized countries of the East and the uncharted lands of the West, strange and deadly people who dwelt there, the cruel and bloodthirsty descendants of the fallen witch kingdom. And I am very interested to find more about that later. Some funny stuff. 18, I know. It is impressive that I accomplished so much at such an early age. And Kale says, crime isn't an accomplishment. Sardothian, yes, but becoming the world's most famous assassin is. Then some more world building. Lord, don't call me that. I'm not given the title of Lord, says Kale. His lips squeezed together so tightly they turned white. This is not necessarily world building, but description and stuff. His entire body seemed tense, and she didn't fail to notice the way he clenched his jaw when Parrington spoke. She's talking about Dorian. Whatever their relationship was, it wasn't cordial. King Brannon was Fae, and Oakwald is still his, talking about the forest that they were staying in. And sad, perhaps it was good that magic had vanished. It was far too dangerous for any sane person to wield. Her gifts might have destroyed her by this point. The smoking fire burned her eyes as she took another bite. Wow, I can't talk about that yet, but I'm excited. Small white flowers lay at the foot of her cot, and many infant-sized footprints led in and out of the tent after that first night staying in the forest. We don't really know why the Fae are treating her like that, but they are. 52, 10-year-old prince was rotten and spoiled inside and out. A tower made of inky black stone stood in the garden. 2 gargoyles, wings spread for flight, perched on each of the 4 clock faces. And as a child, Kale wouldn't go near it. The king had it built around Dorian's birth. Books and books and books. She'd entered a city made entirely of leather and paper. Love it. She's going to the library. The legends that a second library lies deep beneath in catacombs and tunnels. This is from Celaena to Dorian. As many of your millions books seem to be present and underused, I must beg you to grant me permission to borrow a few so that they might receive the attention they deserve. And then he says, I command you to read these first so that we might discuss them. On page 81, I underline, aren't you first going to show me the basics? Her sword dangling from one hand. I was in Indovia for a year, you realize. I could have easily forgotten. If you consider that sort of gracelessness equal to swordsmanship, what sort of fighting do you do, Kale Westfall? I love her so freaking much. And then I just wrote that she's a badass because she practically threw the rapier into place and drew the hunting knives without hesitation. This is all a page full of description of all the different champions that are competing, and then some more world building. Is anyone staring at you? No, because you're not real competition. And she says it's insulting. Kale says it's smart. They'll think that you'll be eliminated sooner or later, and they should focus their attention on getting rid of bigger, stronger, faster champions like Kane. And when they wake up in the morning of the final duel and find that you are their opponent and that you have beaten them, the look on their faces will make all the insults and lack of attention worthwhile. So some plot building there. Then on page 95, I've got Nehemiah's description, the light of Elwë, who would save them from their plight. Nehemia, who might someday pose a threat to the king of Ardalin's rule over her home country when she ascended to the throne. And then, of course, Celaena speaks Elwë, which is amazing. And so she asks Nehemia about her journey and stuff, and Nehemia says, yes, then the queen sent this one, jerking her head at Caltaine, to bring me around with that sweating worm of a man as well. And this is just the beginning of this beautiful friendship. What do you make of the castle? It's the most foolish thing I've ever seen. I just love them together. So those are all of my annotations up until page 104. And then I'll be reading more, obviously. So far, this book is not as good as the rest of the series, and definitely not as good as I remember it. It's sitting solidly at like a 3 stars right now. So we'll see how the book continues. Obviously, I will be continuing the series reread, but wow, it's amazing to read this after just finishing her last book in the series, because the writing has gotten so much better. So I'm really interested to see how I like this book as a whole once I've finished it. But so my next annotation is on page 106, and this is the orange world building. A large ring of black iridescent stone glimmered on Kane's fingers. Strange that he'd wear it to practice. And I'm ready for that. Then, okay, we have some red. So this is stuff that's like gross or sad. You'd be better off on your back, learning tricks useful to a woman. In fact, I can teach you some tonight if you like. And this is one of the competitors. But then Nox makes me laugh. They wouldn't know the first thing to do with a woman, even if one walked stark naked into the bedroom. Then some more world building. This is Paranth, Terrasen's largest city. She'd never been there, but Nox is from there, and so she feels a bolt of fear and guilt 10 years since the royal family had been butchered. She talks about the White Fang Mountains, and the men there had been one of the first peoples to be put down by Ardalin's conquering armies, and she heard tales of mountain men killing their wives and children and then themselves rather than be taken. Then some funny stuff. Kale laughs. Dorian convinced the captain of the guard to take me as his apprentice, but father refused, so I abdicated my title as Lord of Aniel to my brother and left the next day. And then something sad. She could tell that his father hadn't objected. Some more sad stuff. Celaena telling the story of when she was 12. I wasn't nearly as skilled at swordplay with my left hand, so Arvin basically told her that he would break it if she didn't do it herself. So she breaks her hand against a door frame and slammed the door shut on it, months during which she could only use her left. And I bet Brello never did that to you. Kale says, no, he didn't. Then on page 121, no one deserves to be whipped like an animal, Celaena says, and then she says that she got 21 lashes the first day she went to the camp. Next day, a young woman slipped her a tan of salve, but later that day, 4 overseers raped and killed her. Then on page 128, you're not about to inform me that you wish to marry for love, are you? The queen says to Dorian. Love does not guarantee a successful marriage. Which is just sad. On page 147, I'm not some odd commodity that you can gawk at. You won't use me as part of some unfulfilled desire for adventure and excitement, Celaena said to Dorian. And then the last one, he was almost to the threshold when she spoke, her voice distant. His name was Sam, who she was in love with before he died. I'm very excited but very sad to read the prequel novellas because Sam. But that has you caught up for now. I'm on page 150, so that is where I'm at. This book just, I am reading quickly when I do pick it up. I'm finding myself not really wanting to pick it up though, because it's just not as good as the rest of the series. And it makes me nervous, like, am I gonna feel this way about all of the books when I reread them? I hope not. So I'm reading this, and I'm getting there. We're almost halfway through. We're like almost 40% done, I think, if I look on Goodreads. It's been a hot minute since I did this and went through some of my annotations. The last time that I filmed, we were on page 149 and now we're on page 338. So get ready to go through some annotations. Are you ready? I don't know if I'm ready. Let's go. So my next annotation isn't for another 20 pages on page 169, and it's a funny. Nehemia looked after Cain and her dark eyes narrowed. Something about him makes me want to be in his face. Selena laughed. I'm glad I'm not the only one. Then on page 179, I wrote about Dorian's point of view while Selena is sleeping. But then on the next page, we also get Kale's point of view while Selena is sleeping. So Dorian describes her that he knew she wouldn't harm him. She hadn't even bothered to stir, but there was nothing of the assassin in her face. Not a trace of aggression or bloodlust lay across her features. But then when Kale describes her, she was a sleeping animal, a mountain cat or dragon, and her markings of power were everywhere. He shook his head and walked into the bedroom. And then before that, we have this quote, something that transformed his friend into something else, someone he didn't know. He was fairly certain she was a virgin, but did Dorian know it? Basically, I said bros before hoes, man, because he's like really jealous. And then also, like, why does her being a virgin matter? Just asking. Okay, then on page 184, we have a bunch of world building stuff. We've got, there was something calming and familiar about the queen's face. Selena almost cried. She's talking about Elena. Selena almost cried aloud as she saw them. The pointed, arched ears, the ears of the Fae, the immortal. Gavin, the first king of Ardalan, and this was Elena, the first princess of Terrasen. Elena Galathinius Haviliard, the sword that had slain the Dark Lord Erawan, named Damaris. The 8 guardians, you know of whom I speak, the gargoyles on the tower. This is between Selena and Elena. They guard the portal between our worlds. You were meant to come to this castle just as you were meant to be an assassin to learn the skills necessary for survival. And this part, she had spent so long forgetting. Something evil dwells in this castle. What was your purpose in telling me to do those things? She mussed aloud, her voice echoing off the intricately carved walls. You've been dead for 1,000 years. Why still bother with Aurelia? On page 203, but she and Nehemia walked away, the princess holding her hand tightly, not from fear or anger, but just to tell her that she understood and that she was there. I love their friendship. Please ignore the typing in the background. I apologize. And then we have on page 207, he was old enough to more vividly recall the burnings and executions 10 years ago. She's talking about Kale. Royal families were slaughtered when seers and magic wielders were burned alive. Something funny. Can I be honest with you? Kale leaned closer and Selena leaned to meet him as he whispered, you sound like a raving lunatic. A bunch more funny stuff. A shriek of rage ripped through her throat, and she took the cue in her hands and bit down upon the shaft. For the world's greatest assassin, this is pathetic, says Dorian. If you're going to insult me, you can shove this. She lifted the cue in the air and made an obscene gesture that finished her sentence. I'd like to invite the court painter so I can forever remember the sight. Here, just let me show you. It was the oldest and most shameless trick in the book. He reached over and put his hand on top of the one that gripped the cue. If you don't stop feeling and start instructing, I'm going to rip your eyes and replace them with these billiard balls. Defending her, are you? Varen taunted. Is that the bargain? She opens her legs and you keep an eye on her during practice. Gross. She instantly eliminated him. The hall was utterly silent. Mock me again, she spat at Varen, and I'll do that with my sword the next time. Good for her. She hadn't imagined she would be so alone. She wished Sam were with her. A stag, magnificent and virile, the symbol of the royal house of Terrasen. We also have, you're going to hit the left wall, he said, crossing his arm. I'm going to hit you in the head if you don't shut up. I just love how snarky she is. Kale had been right. She'd missed the center by 6 inches to the left. On page 226, we had some sad stuff. His tendons were snapped by a knife to keep him from running. There were dirt beneath his nails. There were fingernail marks. He was desperate to get away. He was alive the entire time that thing sharpened its claws on the stone while its master watched. Gross. And then this is the description of the different country locations, which you can also find on the map. But Orinth, that city of light and learning, the pearl of Aurelia, and capital of Terrasen, Selena's birthplace. So then Nehemia says, I sense much worry in you, and I hear much that you do not say. You never voice any of your troubles, though your eyes betray them. We're friends. When you need me, I'll be there. And I love them. So this is Catriona. She was in the midst of smoking a pipe because she's a drug addict, and she was smoking opium. This is some sad stuff. As if those words broke the spell that had been holding the princess in place, Nehemia rushed into her arms. Unable to say anything, the assassin simply held her for as long as it took for the pain to ease. This is after she finds out that there were a bunch of rebels that were murdered. It makes me sick too, Kale murmured, glaring at the floor. 500 people. I'd like to think that if my country was conquered, I would stop at nothing to win back my people's freedom too. And he's talking about Nehemia, and I just love it. I'm emotional. Okay, so then she grabbed a book and chucked it at him to get him out. And then she chucks it at the Prince Dorian. She says, and then he says, I'd hope that Arlen's assassin would choose to attack me in a more dignified manner, at least with a sword or knife, though preferably not in the back. I love it. His hands gently caressed her ivory silk. His eyes widened. By the word, you actually read this rubbish? Oh, he was quoting it. If you read it, your literacy experience will be complete. And, she added with a coy smile, it will give you some creative ideas to do with your lady friends. You always wear that necklace, he said. Is it another gift? This is also Dorian. No, she covered the amulet with her hand. I found it in my jewelry box and liked the look of it, you insufferably territorial man. Been robbing the royal coffer, have you? No, she repeated sharply. So then we talk about the necklace. When she put it on, Aaron couldn't harm her. She saw the Dark Lord for what he was and called him by his true name. This is Dorian explaining the eye of Elena to Selena. It's been lost for centuries. I thought you couldn't read at that level yet, Selena says to Nehemia. Nehemia tucked the book into the crook of her arm. Then you're like every ignorant fool in this castle, Lillian, she said with perfect pronunciation of the common tongue. Nehemia had been the one to tell her that the etchings in the garden were word marks. Nehemia had every reason to deceive them, to plot against them, to tear this stupid competition and send everyone into a tizzy. Moving right on along, we have page 273. Just don't open your mouth and no one will notice because she has bright red teeth from eating all the candy. You and I both know that's not possible, Selena said. To her surprise, Philippa laughed. Are you my present, or is there something in that basket at your feet, she asked. If you'd like to unwrap me, he said, lifting the large wicker basket onto the table. We still have an hour until the temple service. And then he realizes that she ate all the candy. Didn't I give you 3 pounds? It was hilarious. Today is the day on which the great goddess gave birth to her firstborn, Loomis, Lord of the Gods. Oh, the high priestess has an 8-pointed star was tattooed upon her brow in a shade of blue that matched her gown, its sharp lines extending to her hairline. How long was I asleep? She whispered. He didn't respond. How long was I asleep? She asked again. She's talking to Kale. And notice a hint of red in his cheeks. You were asleep too? Until you began drooling on my shoulder. So then we get to know some stuff about their religion. Each blindfolded child was no more than 10 years old. Every year, 9 children were chosen, and then they basically pretend to be the gods. Farner, god of war, comes, and then there's Loomis, god of love. Deanna, goddess of the hunt and maidens. She gifted Selena a golden arrow as a symbol of her power and good graces. I'm just obsessed with Philippa. She helps Selena trick everyone into going to the ball. Lady Lillian belongs to herself and no one else. I love that. That was Dorian. In the duel, she'll drink a toast in honor of the goddess and gods. And if we were merely to give her a dose of bloodbane, not lethal, but just enough to cause her to lose control, it would give Kane the advantage he needs. This was the Duke, Parrington, and Catriona plotting. So there, looking up at her, were the symbols she'd seen near the bodies. For the flesh of the sacrifice, the beast will grant you the victim's strength. This is the animal. Knees that bent the wrong way, like an animal's hind legs, the Ritterak emerged. Its hairless gray skin was stretched tightly across its misshapen head, displaying a gaping mouth full of black fangs. Its vaguely human body sank onto its haunches. Saying words in a tongue the assassin didn't understand, the light in the room pulsed and her skin tingled. Selena found her arms covered in glowing turquoise word marks. This is to save her life, because Nehemia saves her when she realizes she is being poisoned, Nehemia held her in the water, rocking her back and forth. I'm just obsessed with them. And this is also important because she uses Damaris to kill the Ritterag, and she shoves the whole sword through its face. Why had the king arrived alone? And more importantly, how had everyone in his traveling party died? We don't know. That's everything to the point in which... So clearly I've been doing some reading. I'm hoping to finish this book today, and then I will have this this video go up on Thursday. Today's Monday. So that's my goal. I want to finish. I'm on page 339, and there are a total of 406 pages. So I definitely can do that. This reread is like interesting because this book is funny, and there is a whole set of romance. If you notice, I don't have any pink annotations, which is my like romance cutesy stuff, but like I don't care because I know where we go from here, and like this is not the romance. Neither one of them are the romance that continues forward. Sorry, that's a slight spoiler, but like I am not a Dorian fan, I'm not a Kale fan. I have a fan. I know who I'm ready for to meet, and we're not going to meet him for a while. Even though I love Kale and hers and Dorian and hers banter, which is why I have so much teal, which is for funny, I don't care about their romantic moments. So I'm not really highlighting any of them, but yeah, I'm excited to talk about this, and I'm just excited to get like further into the series because you can clearly tell after reading Kingdom of Ash and then going back to this, you can see how clearly Sarah J. Maas's writing has improved, and just like, I mean, she's been writing for years now, so her skill has been honed more from when she wrote this book, and that is really interesting to me. It's like really interesting to read one of her first works, or maybe her first work, after reading her most recent one. It's just like, wow, miles and miles apart in terms of how well she writes and the way that she writes and everything. So that's always interesting. But I will finish this, and then when I have done that, I will update you on my final thoughts for this book diary and show you my last annotations. I have now finished the book. It is Wednesday the 24th, but I finished it on Monday, I think, and I finally have sat down to finish showing you my annotations from chapter 46 and onward. Let's do this, and then I will go through my final thoughts with you. Page 340. This is Dorian. He couldn't imagine being with anyone else, wanting anyone else, talking about Selena, and I wrote, "You know nothing, Jon Snow," because you really don't. Then on page 345, I have some purple. The princess met her stare and lifted her chin in encouragement. This is at Selena. And she offers Selena her wooden staff to honor her, Selena realized, her eyes stinging. One fellow warrior acknowledging the other. Also, sorry for the background noise. My window is open. I apologize. So this is all during the duel. Let it be with an Elway weapon that you take them down, says Nehemia. Let the king's champion be someone who understands how the innocents suffer. And she couldn't forget the 3 scars on her back, or the slaves she'd left in Dovier, or the 500 butchered Elway rebels. So she decides to fight with the staff for the last duel. No matter what happens, I want to thank you. Kale tilted his head to the side. For what? For making my freedom mean something. Ah, so good. I love everything that's happening right now. My name is Selena Sardathian, she whispered, but it makes no difference if my name's Selena or Lillian or bitch, because I'd still beat you no matter what you call me. This is right after she finishes the first duel with Grave. The last annotation I made, I didn't annotate the rest of the book, so that's the last bit of annotations. That is everything for Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. So this book does a good job of setting up a plot for the rest of this series. This is kind of a book that could be standalone, which I think makes sense because she didn't know she was going to get this huge series deal basically when she started writing it, so that, you know, it's just what it is. I think I ended up giving this a 4 out of 5 stars because there is so much like feeling that I have in regards to these characters and the fact that they're getting set up for the rest of the story. I think that if I read this again right now, but I it wasn't a reread for me and this was the first time I'd ever read it, but right now I think I would have given this a 3 out of 5 stars. It would have just been okay, and I think the reason that it made a 4-star for me is because I am attached to these characters already. I know where their character arcs are headed, and so I'm just excited to get to that. And I also know that Sarah J. Maas's writing really has grown and gotten a lot better since writing this. It's not that it's bad writing by any means, it's just not up to the standard of what I expected from her writing, having read her most recent work years and years after she's written this one. So I think that's just an unfair assessment of mine, but it's just okay writing, I think. So I think that's why I would have stood at a 3 out of 5 stars if it weren't for the fact that this is a reread. But I'm still so happy that I'm reading this series. Don't forget that on May 11th at 11 a.m. PST, which is 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, me and Brittni will be talking about this book along with a few other co-hosts for this month over on Brittni's channel. All of that information is linked down below, so you can go check out Brittni's channel, subscribe, and yeah, so we'll be live showing about that there. The TOG read-alongs, the Twitter is at TOG read-alongs with an S at the end, but then we're using the hashtag TOG read-along if you want to hashtag us on Instagram or anything like that. And all of my social media is always linked down below there as well, and I'm pretty sure you can find Brittni's all over the place on her own channel as well. So that is all the information dumping that I need to do. Let me know in the comments down below what you liked about this video. How can I improve these bookish diaries? What do you want to see more of? What do you want to see less of, etc.? Anything, any sort of critiques that you want from this type of video. These are new for me, but I am planning on doing them for all of Throne of Glass and all of Daughter of Smoke and Bone, and maybe for another series that we might be doing a read along together later that we haven't announced yet. Yeah, let me know like how I can make these videos better for you guys, anything that you want to see more of or less of, etc., because I am going to be doing so many of them. I really like these videos because I like being able to look back on my own reading feelings and stuff, but obviously I'm also making this video as content for you guys to watch, so I want to know what you guys want as well. So yeah, that is everything for this video, I think. I hope you guys enjoyed. Please give it a big thumbs up if you did so, and make sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. I make videos every Thursday and Saturday, so I'll see you guys very soon with a new one, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye!